Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose, and it might finally be happening. The month of September continues to sound very fun with a new Nintendo Direct now leaking online where it sounds like they're preparing to confirm some of those ongoing rumors. Yes, fun times ahead. Also, we're going to talk about another acquisition today because that's what we do on this channel. We talk about delays, buyouts, and, well, I guess more delays and even more buyouts. This is just a weekly thing anymore, though today we do have a rather interesting Sony and Tencent acquisition. Kind of. That's caused some rather interesting takes online. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Before we get into any of that, though, make sure that those buttons below, just kind of imagine they take up like 99% of the screen, and then click 1, 2, 3 times. Subscribe, like, and, of course, that very important bell notification button. That way you don't miss any of my daily videos. Trust me, if you like news, definitely click those buttons below. With that said, though, let's just go and get right into the news, starting off with, well, actually another acquisition. This one's actually very notable as well, but it is going a little under the radar with, well, everything else that's happening today. But with that said, Quantic Dreams, the studio behind Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human, has officially been acquired by NetEase. There's really been rampant speculation of a Quantic Dream acquisition for years now, as this was one of the most prominent independent studios that's available. They were often linked to Sony, considering their strong relationship in the past. I've also heard a lot of speculation of an Xbox acquisition, but instead, NetEase, they swooped in here, which kind of speaks to two different things. One, NetEase is quickly becoming a big publisher within console gaming. This is just their latest addition. They've also gobbled up promising talent like Hiroyuki Kobayashi, which has worked on Resident Evil and Dino Crisis in the past, and they even managed to poach the Yakuza creator Toshihiro Nagoshi away from Sega. He's now founded his very own studio over at NetEase. So you can see, NetEase, they have big plans for console and PC gaming. Now the other part about this though, and this is the good thing for fans, with NetEase acquiring Quantic Dreams instead of one of the console makers as an example, that means that their games will more than likely remain multi-platform. That is a very good thing. For that matter, Quantic Dreams has had some well-documented issues in recent years. There was a big report going around at one point in time that they were struggling to hire talent because of their toxic work environment. And today, in an official statement, they did note that not only does this buyout allow them to keep their creative freedom, that's very much what you want to see, but it will accelerate their vision in creating landmark titles. So maybe with NetEase acquiring them, that can kind of help them bring in more talent, as they reportedly were struggling with that prior to this buyout. Either way, as you can see, that's just really another key piece off the board in the ongoing acquisition season. I'm sure we'll talk about plenty more acquisitions as the year rolls by. Moving on though, more TGS news has made its way online. The Tokyo Game Show increasingly looks like it will be worth paying attention to this September. Both Xbox and Konami has announced that they have TGS plans as well. Yeah, Xbox confirmed they have a stream set for September 15th, where they noted that you can expect to see updates on existing titles from Xbox Game Studios and titles launching from developer partners. Other than that, they didn't really go into great detail as to what will be here, but this once again does show Xbox's commitment to Japan this generation. What I kind of expect them to do here, though, is to just kind of follow what they did with the Xbox Bethesda showcase and then with Gamescom. And that's really for them to just focus on games that they're releasing within the next 12 months, including some of their Japanese games. They do have some pretty big Japanese games like Wolong Fallen Dynasty and Persona releasing day one into Xbox Game Pass, so they could give us some updates on those, as well as some of their first-party games like The Pentiment, Grounded, and of course, Forza. Who knows though, we might get a few surprises here at this showcase. Again, it will be on September 15th. As for Konami though, the once prominent Japanese publisher, it's always interesting when they reveal anything anymore. And well, they are hyping up something here. They did say that they're going to be at TGS 2022, where they're set to reveal a new game in a series that they're describing as quote-unquote beloved around the world. Now, with all the rumors that we've heard over the last few years, obviously that's going to get fans very, very excited. Could this possibly be the place where we see the revival for Silent Hill, Metal Gear Solid, or even Castlevania? I mean, I know we would all kind of love that. But, I mean, this is Konami that we're talking about here, so there's just as much of a chance of being completely disappointed, as there is a chance of something really exciting happening. With that said, we do have some things to go by currently. The Video Game Chronicles did report that they had heard it's a smaller project and it's not the planned revivals for Castlevania, Silent Hill, and Metal Gear Solid, as I just mentioned, though they also note that those games do exist. Interestingly enough, though, VGC continued on to say that they've also heard that remasters for Metal Gear Solid 1 through 3 exist, so that could actually be the announcement that Konami has planned here. I mean, honestly, that's still a very welcome announcement, as long as you kind of have your expectations tempered, and that's kind of why I'm letting you know ahead of time. Now, speaking of showcases, it does appear that a September Nintendo Direct just leaked out online with some of the games that are expected to be announced there. Now I know we kind of hear about this one, it almost feels like a monthly basis by this point, but this is coming from the often leaky Jeff Grubb, which we all kind of know his reputation. He does absolutely seem to know his stuff. This is also coming from the GamesBeat managing editor, Mike Minotti, and during the Giant Bomb podcast, they confidently, and that's very important, but they confidently leaked a September Direct. You can actually take a look at this quote here to see just how confident they actually are in what they've said. They say 100% there's a Nintendo Direct in September. It's that simple. There is still some uncertainty about whether this will be a general Direct, maybe a mini. There was some talk of it being a partner Direct. So at the very least, they are absolutely confident in some type of Direct happening in September, and while they wouldn't necessarily confirm what type it is, they have heard of a few games that will likely be announced here, which leads them to believe it's not a partner showcase. The games they very specifically mentioned are some of the games that have been heavily rumored, being Zelda Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and then a Metroid Prime remaster. They did say this: to be clear, guys, the one thing we are very, very sure is being announced at this Direct are the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess ports for Switch. Now, of course, these games, again, have been heavily rumored for quite a while, but it's their confidence here that really stands out to me. A lot of times you hear about these leaks, you'll often see insiders kind of claim it may or may not happen, but they're flat out saying they know it's happening this month, and they believe it's more or less a Zelda blowout event, which, if that is the case, this is interesting for an entirely different reason as well. Well, yes, I think the addition of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess alone is very, very exciting for Switch owners. These are still ports of older games, but there is one thing about this. Of course, we can't forget about what's coming rather soon. You know, just a little game here being Breath of the Wild 2. That is supposedly right around the corner, and if it actually does release in early 2023, as is currently planned, then you would kind of expect them to start talking about it a little bit more. Maybe we could get its official name, whether it has more traditional dungeons, and then the big question that's on everybody's mind: when's its release date? Well, if they really do have a Zelda-focused Nintendo Direct for September, as is being claimed here, I'd imagine that Breath of the Wild 2 will show up in some shape or form. I've talked about this before, but even though it's not necessarily releasing this holiday, them simply hyping it up will increase mindshare for the Switch this holiday. So I think that it would be in their best interest to talk about some games that are releasing in early 2023 as well. For that matter, if this is a general Direct, they could confirm some other games here. Either way, though, I'll save my speculation if they actually do confirm this for real, but if Nintendo does confirm this, the expected announcements are for Metroid and Zelda, which for me personally is incredibly, incredibly exciting. I absolutely love these franchises. But let me know what you all think about all this, though. Do you believe what you're hearing here, or do you think this is just yet another Nintendo Direct rumor that won't come to fruition? I'm actually leaning more towards this being real. That might be me just hoping, but again, Jeff Grubb, he does seem to know his stuff very, very much, and there seems to be a lot of smoke around some of the stuff that is currently happening. There's lots of rumors for Metroid, there's lots of rumors for Zelda, and there's lots of rumors for a September Nintendo Direct. Now, we do also have one more interesting story to go over here, and yes, this is more acquisition news. Though this isn't really the same as some other acquisitions, but it has been grabbing a lot of headlines today, and there's been a lot of confusion as to what this actually means. But what's happening here is that both Sony as well as Tencent acquired a minority stake in the Soulsborne studio FromSoftware. Now, when you first hear that, I mean, you know, there's that immediate thought for some fans out there that, wow, it actually happened. Sony finally acquired FromSoftware, and their games will be exclusive to PlayStation going forward. But no, that's not actually quite how this works. Don't worry, we'll get there, but it is official. PlayStation increased their investment in FromSoftware and now owns 14.09% of the company, while Tencent will now own 16.25%. Kadakawa, being the parent company, remains the majority holder at 69.66%. So what does all this really mean for fans? That's what we all kind of want to know, right? Well, that's the thing, because this actually doesn't really change much of anything on the surface level. Yes, there's some speculation out there, but FromSoftware will still operate as they were already, with Kadakawa being the majority holder, and because of that, FromSoftware will operate as they have been and will be able to release their games where they want. Sony nor Tencent acquiring a minority stake will change any of that. However, this does speak to Sony's strong relationship with FromSoftware, and that's also important, as you can never completely rule out the idea of them working together on an exclusive title in the future. Sony and FromSoftware have already done that a few different times in the past with games like Demon's Souls, and of course you have Bloodborne. So who knows, they could work together once again in the future, or maybe even revisit something like Bloodborne with a possible remaster. I know we all want that, but this news here doesn't confirm any type of exclusive deal one way or the other. I think it strengthens the idea of Sony possibly going to FromSoftware and working on something together in the future, but nothing really more than that. FromSoftware is still completely free to release their games multi-platform unless they want to partner up with PlayStation. That is their choice, along with Kadakawa. This actually kind of reminds me of what happened with Epic Games when Sony invested in them just a few years back. They acquired a minority stake in them, and fans immediately started to speculate that things like Unreal Engine 5 would be exclusive to the PlayStation 5. But as we all know, that never happened. For that matter, if you look into Sony's history, they've made investments in several key publishers. Back in 2021, they acquired a minority stake in Devolver Digital, as an example. And at one point in time, they had like 8.2% share of Square Enix. So they do absolutely make investments like this from time to time. And again, that's not necessarily for exclusivity. However, FromSoftware did get a big cash injection here, which will majorly benefit the company itself. In fact, one thing that's been pointed out was their mention of use of funds, where it states that it allows expansion of scope of FromSoftware's own publishing in the global market. So this could allow them to self-publish instead of relying on somebody like Bandai Namco. I think one other takeaway here, though, is that with both Tencent and Sony getting a significant portion of FromSoftware, that does mean that it's less likely that somebody else could swoop in to acquire FromSoftware outright. There will be competition if that ever does happen, especially now that you know both Tencent and Sony are heavily invested. For that matter, they can kind of keep each other from just outright acquiring FromSoftware. What's important for fans to know right now, though, is that FromSoftware will still be free to release their games where they want to. So if they want to make an Elden Ring sequel, they can still make that multi-platform. I think for both Tencent and Sony, there are some benefits of having a minority stake in a studio like FromSoftware, but as for fans, there's not really a clear indication of any change with them on the horizon. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, what new game releasing in September are you most excited about? Something I like to do every month, trying to gauge what you all are looking forward to. And as you can see here, and I think this might actually be the first time this has actually won, but Other took the majority of the votes here, being 31%. So games like Valkyrie Elysium, Return to Monkey Island, even games like Deathloop, there are some expectations that Deathloop will be coming to Xbox. I saw all those show up in the comments. Second place, though, was for Grounded at 28%. That will be getting its full release. Then Nintendo's big exclusive, being Splatoon 3, took 18% of the votes. The Last of Us Part 1 at 16%, and then the DioField Chronicle at 7%. So there you have it. It looks like there's some excitement for quite a few games, actually, which is really nice to see. There's not just that one game that everybody's kind of gravitating to, but it does seem like interest is pretty spread out here. Grounded, though, did get a lot of votes, as you can see, which that is an interesting game to kind of pay attention to. It's already had a ton of success in early access. We saw that on Steam and Xbox Game Pass alike. And now with its full release, it will include a single-player campaign. You don't see that in a lot of survival games like this, but it is coming from Obsidian Entertainment, and with their expertise in single-player RPGs, I'm curious to see how its single-player will turn out. Then, of course, Splatoon 3. Not much really needs to be said about this game. Splatoon has a lot of fans, and I believe the last game sold well over 10 million units worldwide, and the third game looks really just better than ever. As for The Last of Us Part 1 coming up with 16% of the votes, I think that kind of speaks volumes for this game. I mean, on one side, it's been surrounded by controversy because of its price and whether or not it really actually needed a remake, but it is clear that there's still some interest in this remake. It's really just a matter of how much interest there is. I want to see how it sells at that $70 price tag. I feel like that there would have been a lot more interest at a cheaper price tag, but it is what it is, and nonetheless, reviews came out today, and it's reviewing well with an 89 overall score on Metacritic. There was never really a question on whether or not this game was good, and the reviews definitely speaks to that. I think for me, though, I'm actually quietly most excited for the Diofield Chronicle. What can I say? I do like tactical RPGs, and it just looks a little bit different than others within the genre. I'm hoping it turns out well. September, though, I think looks like a fairly solid month overall. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.